US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy made a joint trip to Kyiv this week. This was followed by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer making a visit to see Joe Biden in Washington. One of the big talking points in both of the meetings has been whether Ukraine will be provided with Anglo-French Storm Shadow and American-made Atacms missiles. These two missiles have a range of close to 200 miles and they have the ability to be fired into mainland Russia. But this move is fraught with risks. Allowing Ukraine to fire Western-made weapons deep into Russia could have a dramatic political impact on the course of the war. Right now, it's been over 2.5 years and the war has remained mired in a grim battle of attrition. The advantage clearly seems to be with Moscow. Russian forces are now bearing down on the strategic town of Pokrovsk, which is the last remaining Ukrainian fortress, and if Pokrovsk falls, then it gives a free access to Russian troops to run through the rest of Donbass. Blinken and Lammy have given their justification for the missile escalation. They have alleged that Iran has supplied Russia with a first batch of short-range, high-speed Fath-360 ballistic missiles. So far, this is a massive step up from the Shahid drones that Tehran has already equipped Moscow with. Russia was likely to use these new Fath missiles within weeks. The Fath-360, these are missiles that have a range of about 75 miles. They could be used to strike Ukrainian cities close to the front lines, whether it's Kharkiv or Zaporizhia, Sloviansk, and even Kramatorsk in the Donbass. And theoretically, these missiles can even be used to target Kyiv. What this allows Russia to do is use its own stock of longer-range cruise and ballistic missiles to attack targets elsewhere in Ukraine. The missile war in Ukraine may appear to be never-ending because Russia's goal is to try and exhaust Ukraine's air defenses. Kyiv is already running short of the S-300 systems. Its power stations have been left defenseless as a result of that. We saw that earlier this year. Ukrainian estimates is that about 2/3 of the energy generation in Ukraine has been destroyed, and it's probably not going to be repaired in time for the winter. In fact, Ukrainians are staring at a very harsh winter this year. A similar strategy will be in the Kremlin's mind when it comes to higher value air defense systems, particularly the US-made Patriots. Joe Biden announced the donation of 4 Patriot systems at the NATO summit back in July. But here's the catch. There is a limited number of interceptor missiles that can be manufactured. This year, Lockheed Martin, which makes the most capable PAC-3 MSE interceptor missiles, expects to make about 500 of them. Ukraine is also concerned that the number of offensive missiles that Russia can fire could far exceed the world's ability to manufacture these interceptors. One estimate that is circulating in Kyiv is that Russia can make upwards of 1,200 missiles a year. That is more than twice of what the leading American manufacturer can make of interceptors in a year. Other figures are lower, whether it's an estimate from the Russian think tank which says that about 400-odd Kh-101 cruise missiles, plus a handful of high-speed ballistics as well. No wonder Vladimir Putin hit right back and issued a rather ominous warning when this news story came out. He said if America and Britain indeed did provide Ukraine with longer-range missiles, then according to him and according to Russia, it would mean that NATO is at war with Russia. This is a scenario which NATO has tried to avoid in these past 2.5 years. More than anything else, it would validate Vladimir Putin's reason for going to war against Ukraine in the first place, that NATO was threatening Russia's security by knocking on its periphery. Also, there is the risk of dangerous escalation. The key point is that as long as the Kremlin believes that it can win this war, or at least retain the initiative in this war, it is going to be an attritional one. And as long as this is an attritional one, then there is no incentive for Putin to consider negotiations. Even after the surprise and relatively successful incursion by Ukraine into Kursk, it is Kyiv that is actually struggling. Experts are hoping that Ukraine can hold on to Pokrovsk, which is the gateway to the Donbass, at least till the end of this year. Russia holds a force advantage which is estimated to be 4:1. For every 1 Ukrainian soldier, there are 4 Russians. And soldier numbers are the one area where the West cannot help Ukraine. Both Europe and America have made it absolutely clear they want no boots on the ground. What infuriates Ukraine is that it cannot hit back at military targets inside Russia with powerful missiles because the West led by the White House, of course, has not allowed the sale of longer-range ballistic missiles. However, the signals that we're getting in the last few days may be to the contrary, that this whole absolute prohibition on longer-range missiles might be lifted. William Burns, who's the CIA chief, said last week that he was sure that Biden will consider other ways in which he can help Ukraine, as long as this war can be contained in favor of Ukraine. The complication is that it is hard to imagine the US, the UK, or any other country that is helping Ukraine right now manufacturing the Storm Shadow, simply giving Ukraine a free hand to bomb Russia deep inside its mainland. It would not be hard work to figure out if either of these weapons have been used, even if it is a miscalculation by Kyiv, perhaps even resulting in the killing of a lot of civilians. That could have huge consequences. Nor are there large stocks of these longer-range missiles, which also is a reason why there is skepticism in the United States that these could actually turn the tide of this war. An effective use of long-range missiles might come only as part of a wider military plan. Ukraine has a plan. In fact, at the end of August, Andriy Yermak, who is the chief of staff to Volodymyr Zelensky, visited Washington, where it was reported that he would present a list of targets that Ukraine believed it could effectively bomb. The complication is that such discussions appear to bring the US and UK closer to the heart of any attack on mainland Russia. Ukrainian insiders have also talked about using the threat of long-range missiles against Russia to try and force an end to this war through a demonstration strike, a strike that would make it clear to the Kremlin it is possible to hit heartlands around Moscow. It is not obvious, though, if Moscow would react so benignly, but one complication is that Russia has nuclear weapons, and any long-range missile attack on Russian cities will see a quick and perhaps irreversible escalation. Zelensky's argued at a meeting of Western defense ministers in Germany last week that being able to strike into its enemy's territory would help ensure Russia is motivated to seek peace and not war. But the calibration of using longer-range missiles has to be very careful. Time may be short for Ukraine, given that there is a US election in less than 2 months. Missile diplomacy may not have been so significant since any time since the end of the Cold War.